Well, here's one we can call it Bob Gates rag, I guess.
I never knew what a folklorist was until I actually met LYNWOOD MONTELL. I was working on a Black History project up in the West End of Cincinnati, and he was our consultant on how to do oral histories. So he stayed overnight with me and told me ghost stories all night and said, "What you're doing is folklore, Bob. You ought to go into folklore." So he told me that Western Kentucky was a good place to do it. So I went down there and got a degree in folk studies.
State Folklife Program started really in the 70s with a basic mission to document, present, and conserve traditional culture and traditional arts of their particular state.
Bob Gates really personifies what a public sector folklorist should be. He was very interested in people and getting to know them, getting to know their stories, the traditions that define them.
Folklore to me is the art of everyday life. It's what people do to fulfill themselves. We're all members of many different folk groups, our ethnic group, our families, our religions, recreational groups. We share a culture within those groups and we share traditions.
Bob Gates is this quiet giant among regional folklorists, and I always love it when he gets a certain gleam in his eye and says, "What if we?" Because I always know that something really surprising is going to come along.
And the Folklife Festival is a prime example of that. He really helped us realize that we could exceed our own expectations.
I kind of talked her into it. She didn't know what it was going to involve.
It just seemed rather complicated, expensive, ambitious. Bob assured us that he could get an NEA grant to support it, and he did.
It ended up costing a lot more than that the first year. I loved the old state capitol. I loved working in the old state capitol in the annex, and then looking out there and saying, this is where we're going to put the festival. And that gave us little problems too, because you couldn't build a barbecue pit on the grounds of the old state capitol without having archaeologists come over and dig up where you're going to put the barbecue pit. We also had the river too, and that was kind of a major thing for me because I always liked occupational folk culture and river-related culture.
There's a lot of little children that went to that festival that got to come from schools all over the state that'll gain things that they'll never probably get to see again.
One of the things I'm most proud of with the Folklife program was developing the Community Scholar program. This idea of going out to communities every week for about 6 weeks in a row and teaching them how to interview, how to document, how to do field work, how to look at what they've got and how to present those artists, and then how to write grants and come up with ways that they can do their own projects in their communities.
He's retired now, but he is still very busy doing things that should be done. And if you don't record the stories like that told by these local people, then you lose so much of the cultural heritage.
Bob Gates has a vocation for the traditional arts. This is a calling for him.
Bob had his artist at heart, you know, whether you were a basket weaver, a guitar thumb picker, or whatever. Bob Gates had your interest at heart, and he fought for you.
I think because of Bob Gates' vision today, we've really been able to show a wide section of Kentucky what the diversity that lives here in the state.
Everything about the program reflected the character and the passion that Bob brought to the program. Bob lived it, he breathed it, he was the mastermind, the drive, and it was a great success.